Welcome, everyone. And those in the hallway, come in. Excited to be here. My name is David Wright. I'm the founder and CEO of Disruptive Innovations. And today we're going to be talking about AI, right? In all seriousness, though, we are it's a $4 trillion opportunity here over the course of the next few years, and one that demands that any of us that have been just kind of classic resellers kind of really do transition into that role as a trusted advisor to our customers. So today you're going to be hearing directly from some of the most strategic vendors in the industry, those building AI into the core of their platforms, or those who are, actually pure play AI vendors, about how they're delivering their offerings. We're going to get into some real life use cases, and it's my hope that coming away from today's conversation that you all are able to take some of this experience and bring it to your customers, follow up with these gentlemen about what they're doing, and again, just hopefully take something away that you can use in your practices. So with that, I'd like to just do some quick introductions, and for those of you who haven't had the privilege of learning about these companies yet, maybe just a sentence or two about what you guys do. So Roger, maybe you could start.
Yeah, sure. Good afternoon, everybody. Roger Hurst, Global Solutions Director at Connects AI. Founded 2013 in Manchester, UK. We now have offices all around the world. We specialize in conversational AI across all channels of communication. We're industry agnostic. We do have a large section of our client base in financial services, healthcare, and legal.
Thanks, Roger.
Hi, everyone. My name is Stephen Karashinsky, CEO of Xero. At Xero, we turn Microsoft Teams calling and Copilot into a competitive advantage for our customers and partners and make it profitable for them. Our superpower as an organization is speed and simplicity. So when we combine our powerful platform with our white-labeled migration and managed services, we deliver outcomes of 3 times faster sales for our partners. We help achieve a time to value of 70% quicker and shorter than anyone else in the industry, and help cut our customers' communication costs by 50%. So our goal is to be the only Teams calling and Copilot partner that you need. Pleasure to be here.
Great. My name is Keith Dennis. I lead the global direct sales team at UJet. And when I say direct, I don't mean direct without a partner. Everything we do includes a partner. So if my direct team sources a deal, we will find a partner to tag it to. So I thought y'all might like to hear that. I'm going to say something we haven't heard here today. We do AI. So we're an AI-powered end-to-end contact center platform, multimodal, omni-channel. We started with AI in the front end about 8.5 years ago, and then integrated that with the omni-channel experience you would see with most contact center vendors, but doing it in a more modern and mobile-first approach.
Yeah, thank you, gentlemen. And again, thank you all for being here. So Keith, actually, let's start with you. So given the growing AI opportunity that we've been talking about, and particularly within CX and contact centers, how should trusted advisors evolve their sales process to effectively position these AI-driven solutions with their customer base?
Yeah, great question. When you think about the advisors, the reason why it's called trusted advisors, because they do trust you. You all come in with an agnostic perspective. You bring in the partners that you think bring the most value. So it really comes down to understanding the use cases, the job to be done that your customers have, and then aligning it with the right partner. So as you're thinking about AI, I wouldn't necessarily be using the industry jargon and the terminology that just sounds foreign to folks that are not in our industry. Thinking about common language in which you can talk about what they're trying to accomplish, the benefits and the efficiencies they can have in the organization, and then tie that back into the products that can make that happen. But it's primarily a solution discussion and getting really into the business where selling this directly to IT is not a great place to start. You're going to have a sales process with them alongside with the business. But this is really an executive conversation on where they're trying to take the business, understanding how modern AI can infuse optimization across the entire organization.
Yeah. And I think, you bring up a good point, Keith. The more, for example, in healthcare, we're using Copilot embedded in Epic. And, there's a level of comfortability with that enterprise platform. So, Steven, for example, I know you guys are working within the Microsoft environment. So I feel like the more you can lean into some of the enterprise platforms that organizations are already comfortable with, right, that actually, can be, yeah. Go ahead, Steve.
No, and I think it's an important point what you mentioned. So AI is used everywhere, but true AI versus generative AI versus automation, there's a difference. And so to your question, if we're kind of making recommendations on how to position yourselves, I think it's important to really understand where the application is and what it's going to do. Because on the generative AI side, when we talk about what that definition is, it's really taking existing data and finding the patterns and learning from it to create some new data. I hear a lot of cases that are brought to our attention from partners or customers where really it's an automation play as opposed to AI. So to maintain that trusted advisor status, I think it's really important to just be clear and help educate the customers because they're confused, and also to pick your spots because the more expertise and what I'm hearing more and seeing more is that vertically focused, as you mentioned, healthcare is where there's an opportunity to shine and differentiate. So it's something to consider of, where are you adding the most value? Where is your level of expertise? And to really hone in on those use cases, it will give you an edge versus a lot of the folks that we see all over the show floor today.
Yeah. And so, Stephen, would you suggest that's when you're selecting a strategic AI partner, looking to ensure long-term growth versus short-term gains, that would, be what you should be looking at?
I think that's a big part. I think the other thing is truly the depth of capability around supporting this technology from an adoption, from a training program. Where is that vendor or technology provider going to be down the road in a couple of years? Because everything I see and we experience as an organization, even that you hear today, this is a skill. It's not just a product that you can buy off the shelf, plug and play, and then you're good to go. Once it's implemented, that's the starting point of this stuff starting to work. So finding those partners who can really help iterate, train the user population to use this stuff properly, the same like you do when you use ChatGPT, the more you use it, the better you get. I saw someone last week at Enterprise Connect say, using this tech should be like a daily skill. That's something you do as part of your routine. Those are the kind of things that we would look for to help create success.
Yeah, and I'd just like to add to that as well that we focused a lot on training up our internal resources to understand the platform and to really get into the nuts and bolts of it. So we have all of our support engineers focused on learning this and training it so they can understand how to support customers. Customers need a lot of support to go live. It's not just, as you say, just a platform that you're going to give them and hand off and let them run with it. You do need to focus on educating that client so they can get the most out of the AI. Specializing on the training around the technical service engineers as well. The guys that actually go on site to deliver it. These guys are working, hand in glove with the customer for a significant period of time. They may focus on some initial basic use cases, but over time, what happens is the customers start to learn and understand the platform, and they're able to actually then make changes themselves, within quite a short space of time.
Yeah. No, great points. Education being huge. Also, just want to note, within the enterprise organizations that we serve, one of the biggest enemies to adoption of AI and innovation in general can often be, a culture of fear, right? And so, as a trusted advisor, one of the things that we've had to get, good enough at is almost being that therapist that sits between IT and operations and in healthcare clinical, and how can we help bridge the gap? How can we identify certain individuals that are kind of poisoning the well and pounding their fist? And when my colleagues get afraid to move, that inaction is just incredibly inefficient when it comes to innovating. So how can I, as a trusted advisor, help clients navigate that? That's just been something that you guys brought to mind for me. So Roger, staying on that, how is integrating AI into communications and collaboration solutions changing customer expectations, and what actionable steps can advisors take to manage or exceed those demands?
Yeah, so I think customers nowadays don't want any barriers to communicating with the customer, with the company. They need to be able to feel comfortable in how they can communicate with the business. So therefore, it's you can't just offer this AI on specific channels. You need to be able to expand it across all the different channels of communication, so that when a customer feels the need to contact you, they can do it easily. They can also have a consistent journey across each channel. All the information that the AI is gathering across each channel as well, it's important to be able to consolidate that and be able to utilize that data. So if a customer then has a repetitive call back to you, you understand the previous context. So I think nowadays it's like the demographics are changing. People expect 24/7 contact. They don't want to wait. They want to get their issues resolved immediately. They want to get the request serviced immediately, and that's where the AI obviously helps, because it is always on, it's always available, and it's ready. And as long as you set it up and train it and integrate it with the data sources internally, you can make sure that your customers experience a solid experience with you.
Yeah. I mentioned at the beginning that we might try to reference some specific case studies. One of the things I really get a lot out of this type of stuff is if I can borrow an experience from a particular, a client or customer that you guys have served that I can then, leverage in going out into the world. Is there, Roger, to start maybe, and then we can go down the line, a specific customer or use case you can lend to us as we go forth from here?
Yeah, sure. So Exact Medicare, or a Medicare broker. So we started working with them on their inbound sales area. So these guys were doing a lot of inbound lead generation. They had a huge team of agents that were basically having to qualify the leads as they came in. And they were spending a lot of time basically handling unnecessary calls where people just didn't qualify for the policies. So we deployed our AI agents into their business to effectively qualify all of the incoming leads. That led to a 30% reduction in unqualified leads going through to the agents, which then freed them up to deal with the qualified leads. Their conversion rates improved significantly. We integrated with their back-end systems, so all of the information the AI captured was presented to the agents. They could understand exactly what qualified that customer, and then proceed to then deal with that customer effectively. But because we deployed it into that part of the operation, it then meant we could subsequently roll that into other areas of the business. So they had a customer care team which had 10 people in it dealing with 45,000 customers. They just couldn't handle that demand. So they were looking at the prospect of having to recruit 3x of that just to handle that demand. We were able to then deploy the AI into their customer care team to free up, and they've only had to then expand that team by, I think it's up to 23 now, whereas they were looking at a lot more to support that customer base.
Nice.
You guys have any other case studies you want to share at the moment?
I just share maybe a couple of use cases.
Please.
We're still in piloting with a lot of our customers because this stuff is still so new.
Right.
And one thing that I would just say, so I'll give you maybe a more interesting case study and then a less interesting. So even just last week, we turned on Copilot and meeting transcription for one of our customers, which sounds pretty basic and pedestrian, not super exciting. But the executive team at this customer really freaked out about the fact that how well the meeting notes were taken, how specific they were. There was multiple people from different countries that participate in this management meeting. Some of them have accents, and so that sometimes could cause a problem. Here was still able to capture all of the words, and the feedback was even if we wanted to grab this information and someone took it by hand, they would never capture the quality of the notes that they were. It would take hours for them to go back and redact this and organize it in a proper way, and the actions would probably be missed. So I know it's basic, and we kind of maybe make jokes about how AI is not so great, but some of this basic stuff still isn't being used everywhere. So sometimes, because we're in tech, we get ahead of it. So there's one, just to remind you, those basic things are still important and not used really well in a lot of organizations. So it's a great opportunity to gain some credibility and get in the door. And the second thing that we're working on is there's a ton of great work happening in the CX contact center space. You guys are leading a ton of it. Sort of like the notion of agent assist, where your agent is sitting, interacting with a customer, and the technology is prompting the agent with information about that customer, maybe what they've done, their history, what they said. We're playing with this with real-time voice for just a non-CX customer user to kind of make the technology just a little bit more adaptable, usable, so you don't have to change your contact center platform today. You can start playing with it and iterating with it with an executive, a manager, a salesperson, and just having someone be able to prompt you with the information that's relevant from your CRM, from your ITSM system, from your notes from logging a meeting call, from your chat history in Teams. It's pretty powerful. So we're trying to get involved in this real-time aspect and hope to have more to share as we get more data from it.
No, really important. In the CX arena, the auto summarization, like leading from transcription and Copilot that a lot of these guys are involved with, taking after call work from 2 minutes to 30 seconds on 7 million calls annually, that's a big deal. Like when we talk about operational effectiveness, right? And it's not overly complicated to roll out. When we talk about Copilot, and we talk about needing to link into a knowledge base in order to make that Copilot effective. In the enterprise organizations that we serve, oftentimes that knowledge base hasn't been looked at ever, right? It's just been kind of piecemealed together over time, and it's in SharePoint and it's over here in ServiceNow. And so I would suggest that any of the advisors that are looking to really dive into this, also try to get better at consulting in the knowledge management space.
Yeah, I think just to add to that as well, the other big opportunity that we find is in the back office. A lot of the focus tends to be on the front office contact center, but actually the back office teams tend to be the ones that are handling huge work volumes. Maybe lots of emails coming in. They have to process those emails. They have to look at all the information and the attachments, and then they have to upload these to various systems. So we found that with our AI, using that tool in that environment, you're able to then massively improve efficiencies. You can have the AI extract all the attachments, do all the analysis on it, extract the data, upload it into the systems, and all of a sudden, you're freeing up a huge amount of time in that back office.
Yeah, I would say, to your point, the voice transcription has dramatically improved. Both in the language it's spoken, the dialect it's spoken, it could be broken. It's really close to being 100% accurate. What we've seen between 2020 and 2023 was really large organizations that were leveraging conversational IQ, generative AI, using virtual agents. And they were large, like Instacart's an example, about 25,000 agents. So very large contact centers. And the professional services to deliver that is pretty pricey, or it has been early stages. We're now at an inflection point where I think we're starting to see the PS prices come down in terms of delivery, where we can now address more of a mass market. Relative to Instacart, a couple things that they do is really interesting is, cameras on our mobile devices are so good nowadays that, Instacart has shoppers and then they have their customers. So when a shopper's going to pick up items for the customer, if they can't find it, or they maybe don't even know the building they're going to, or they're in the store, they can actually take a picture. It uploads through the contact center. It hits the knowledge base or the data pool in the back end, and it tells them you want to go to the building on the left on door 2, or the vegetable you're looking for is on aisle 3 on the second shelf. So being able to translate pictures and kind of these multimodality ways to interact has really improved dramatically. But we're seeing now when people ask about ICP, we heard that in the last session, what's the ideal customer profile? It's really not the number of agents, it's really more of the use cases and the job to be done. So we are seeing that smaller organizations that are looking to be much more modern and leverage a lot of these technologies that are emerging can do so, and can do so in an effective and cost-effective manner.
Yeah, and when we talk about deal size in regard to the opportunity that's there in selling these AI solutions, the tokens that go with it, et cetera, it's nearly the same size oftentimes as the seats, the cost of the seats themselves. And you can also point to, okay, you used to need 100 people to do this. Now you only will effectively need 70. That doesn't mean you lay them off, but if you look at we call it the black cross of standard attrition within an organization. Yeah. They're not feeling that.
Well, it's an interesting comment. We were talking to a partner a couple of weeks ago, and he said, I've just spent the last 20 years selling licenses. Now I'm spending every day trying to remove them. But it's not a matter of, to your point, laying people off. If I can leverage my existing headcount and I can take a handle time down from 5 minutes to 30 seconds by using all the automation and efficiencies along with the human aspects, because it's the human and the machine. It's not one or the other.
It's the impact it has on the customer experience, though. That's the key thing there. You're not just like improving the agent's job; you're actually making the customers get a better experience.
Yeah.
By freeing up those agents to focus more on those complex cases.
Yeah, all those qualitative improvements that are both customer-facing and internal to your employees.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So Keith, I want to talk about some of the common misconceptions or barriers that technology advisors will encounter when they're, talking to customers about these types of solutions. There's a lot of, especially in certain industries, concerns ethically, about AI or from a compliance standpoint. How do you help trusted advisors overcome, these objections or navigate these waters?
Yeah, great point, because we talk about that every day just from an ethics and what are you doing with my personal data, especially in healthcare and financial services. Regulated industries, we talk about this frequently. So it does come, you said the word trust, so it's trust and transparency. What are you doing with the data? How are you putting it into your machine and your learning, and how are you manipulating that to get the outcome, and how are you sharing it or how are you not sharing it? So, data integrity and sovereignty is super important. That really comes down to how does your CX environment interoperate with your back office system? So for us, as an example, we don't store any PII, personally identifiable information, within our system. We leverage real-time data exchange within a Salesforce or a customer with a K or Dynamics. So it's really about, again, trusted advisor architecting out what they're trying to accomplish. What's your environment look like today? What are your concerns about what data? What are the compliance things you're concerned about? Is it GDPR? Is it PCI? Is it HIPAA? Those kinds of things. So really for the trusted advisors to map out all those concerns and even get ahead of them before someone asks you, to say, customers like you in this industry have encountered these concerns, and I just want to share with you how we approach it.
Very cool. Are any of you guys using this? Just I didn't prep you guys on this. Are any of you guys doing agentic AI, like where I can use prompts to build, a bot and then give it a purpose, a role? I know there's been a lot of hype and questions about that, so I was just curious.
I think we're using prompts to give the AI objectives, essentially. So looking at whichever use case you're focusing on, it's going to usually have some KPIs associated to it. Whether that be the KPIs that the agents were previously targeted on, or maybe just some processing activities. So we give the AI a similar objective, and it's able to then learn from the interactions it's having and understands how to achieve those objectives. Obviously, you have to support that with a lot of training information. So domain-specific information, corporate information. You have to give it that background knowledge. But ultimately, we're using these prompts, we call them tasks, to effectively just give the AI agent those specific roles, objectives, and it can then, like I said, it can then utilize all that information to then work towards achieving those objectives within each call.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to get back to something that Keith was saying, if
Please,
you don't mind,
please.
around kind of when we're talking about maybe the misconceptions for advisors and things to think about. So I agree with you 1,000%. Like, this is really about data, and it's a data play first and foremost, and then the presenting it and the actions are a little bit easier once the data is organized and classified properly.
Right.
I think something to think about from the advisor perspective is you may need multiple partners together to provide the full, complete solution to the customer. A CX partner maybe here, or folks that are well versed in AI and have that capability and expertise, but also potentially a security or data governance type of a partner as well. And if it is in fact the area of the ecosystem, as the channel community talks about a lot, multiple parties coming together to fulfill this and support the customer,
Yeah.
I think is really important something to consider, because it's hard for anybody to do everything on their own today.
100%. Yeah, in the large enterprise, we see the SIs doing a lot of that, the Deloittes, the Accentures, those types of folks that we typically don't see in a normal channel engagement. So I think that's the opportunity, is how can we hone our professional services organization to deliver what the big five, as I used to call them, would do, where you could sell. I was just thinking, I'll date myself a little bit. I used to work at Netscape and Sun Microsystems back when, for us to sell $1 million worth of software, we had to send $10 million worth of services. So I kind of feel like that's where we started in the AI space, and we're going to start to level that out.
Yeah.
I think that's a great opportunity for partners.
Yeah, and I would say if you're not doing what the Deloittes and Accentures are doing right now from the standpoint of like knowledge management or CX consulting, like if you're interested and you want to lean in, like go figure it out. right? Like I had to just ask people and like, kind of cobble it together and then sell it and then fall on my face and then, so it's money on the table, and I'd rather not have Accenture or Deloitte in my deals if I don't have to.
They don't know necessarily much more than everybody else because this stuff is so brand new. So it's not like there's 10 years of experience behind this.
Yeah.
There's maybe a couple at the top end for those who are like really, really early adopters. So it's a great time to get involved because the winners here have not yet been identified.
Well, I think that's the risk mitigation play where I'm signing with Deloitte, but they're subcontracting a whole bunch of vendors you've never heard of.
Yeah. 100%. And I like what you said too, just quickly, Stephen, before about like the multiple vendors coming together. Nowadays, you can even use vendors to, I talked about the reorganizing the knowledge management piece, to ingest that data, reindex, recategorize, look for gaps in, what it should be versus what it is now. Like, so we can use AI to fix the knowledge base and then use AI to run Copilot, but often to different vendors, right? One last thing, just I think if you're starting out, my experience has been if you can focus on one industry, like we started out talking about those use cases in the very beginning, if I can get good just at that one industry and those specific use cases, it's been a lot easier for us, for example, in healthcare, to just focus on that initially versus trying to boil the ocean and know all the different industries. Okay, so we're almost up on time. I just want to do a kind of lightning round here. So guys, in one sentence, what's the one thing every trusted advisor should do this quarter to start winning with AI?
Well, there's a question that I didn't ask until I joined UJET. I've worked in the industry, Ring Central, 8x8, Talkdesk, a number of companies y'all are familiar with. And the qualifying question is, who is your primary and secondary hyperscaler? And I'll usually either get eyes rolled, like, what in the world are you talking about? Or they'll say AWS, Google, OCI, Salesforce, whatever it may be. And then the next pivot is, the reason why I asked that question is this.
Right.
So talking about the evaluation process of how do I deliver the job to be done today? How do I ensure I'm buying a future-proof vendor or platform? So that's on the technical aspect. And then on the financial side, we're seeing three kind of consumption models. Not one sentence, sorry about that. Basically, pay-as-you-go model. Tends to be pricier, but it feels like it's less risky. Contractual commitment, that's where you guys get better commissions. 5-year annual prepaid vendors tend to like that. One we're starting to see on the higher end of the market, and I think it's going to make its way into it, is outcome-based pricing. So I would be thinking about what that is, and if you're willing to put a practice together that says if I can keep 40% of calls going from a virtual agent to a live person, which costs me X amount of money, you'll pay me Y. So we're starting to see that in some of the large engagements, but that's my one sentence.
I would say use it as an opportunity to reevaluate the entire customer lifecycle and look at all the opportunities that business has to engage with their customers across all the different touch points. Because when you start talking about AI, the customer soon realizes there are so many potential use cases for it. There's so much automation they can build into their customer journey. And do upsell, do cross-sell, things that they perhaps didn't have the resource to do, or perhaps won't be managed, as well as it could be. You can just fully automate all of these processes across the entire, life cycle, and look at how your customers, want to communicate with you. You're not just limited anymore just to like the basic sort of channels. You've got the full breadth of communication channels you can use. You can integrate it in your, with your CRMs, your back-end ERP systems. So there's just a lot of opportunity in there now.
And I think if you focus on the challenges the companies are facing, like I found an opportunity in medical coding AI and automation with a health system. That was their biggest pain point, and now I've heard it from multiple health systems. I had to go out and find a vendor. Like they weren't actually in the channel, and they're a startup. But like, I think that's an example of kind of backing into it. You guys are going to be able to solve a lot of those issues, but like, don't even limit yourself, Stephen, how would you wrap it up?
I guess next 90 days, if you haven't already, I would spend the time getting really good at the fundamentals. Focus on some of the stuff that is available today, whether it's Copilot or some of the other tools. and master them, play with them, iterate, use it every day. Because the more you can understand what the basics do, you'd be surprised how many doors that's going to open up automatically, and then that gives you kind of that credibility to lean in and have more advanced conversations, get out of IT, start having conversations with the business, open it up to the organization. But you know, being an expert in kind of that foundation, that's where I'd spend the next 90 days getting great at that.
Yeah, and Stephen, great point to end, because in our experience too, a lot of the folks making these decisions nowadays are not IT anymore, right? They're operational folks, they're clinical folks, they're business leaders, right? And in that, like, you have an opportunity to educate them, really, because their knowledge is not gonna, like, if you're here, they're only gonna be here if they've started exploring it. So you have the opportunity's there, right? So anyway, let's give a round of applause for our panelists.
Thank you.